While growing up in the city of Calcutta, India, my listening of songs, it started quite naturally in Bengali and Hindi, which happens to be the national language of India. But while I was in my mid-teens, I came in contact with the pop groups then, which were very popular and doing very good in those times, mainly ABBA. A couple of years into listening, during early 80s, I came to listen to Beatles, and the whole spectrum of my listening experience changed. Now, the songs they used to sing, they had a different background, coming from different culture, and they used to say something very different, which I was not aware of earlier. So I had to go to American Library and British Council to know what happened to be their background, what they meant to say through their music. In our time it was only records, and a few years later it was cassettes. Now I had a turntable, the one you see here, a Sansui one, and the records were my only passion at that point of time. And while cultivating rock in general, it covers a real vast forms of music. I came across quite a few groups and musicians who sounded utterly different from what I was listening to. And then came the other thing which is associated with it, with LPs. That is their covers, the front covers. Now I used to buy my LPs from second-hand markets, and in those days there were no internets, there were no ready reckoner where I could get information, and while I was on the road I had nothing. So if I came across certain records which I had to choose and pick and buy at that very point of time, and I just can't happen to leave them alone, because if I go next day it will be gone. So I had to go by certain parameters. First was definitely the cover and its artwork, which said a lot about any unknown performer, unknown to me at that point of time. Say for instance, I take into account this LP by Del Shannon. It is a very, very rare one. It comes from pre-psychedelic era of the 60s, and I had no clue. I mean, I couldn't make out that how the music would be, but I was so impressed by the cover that I bought it. The album's name is The Further Adventures of Charles Westover. Charles Westover happened to be Del Shannon's real name. So, and when I started listening to it, I found that not only it was rare, but it was beautiful. Similarly, there would be some other ones. For instance, we had known about bootleg records. Bootleg records, there were classifications. The record I came across, why it was a bootleg, because it was not released from any official company. It was released by the performer himself. The performer was Bruce Mackay. Here you can see the cover. And again, the cover impressed me a lot. And if you look at the back cover, you would find there are no mention of any record company or anything. A true bootleg album. It was a solo album. It was a cross between folk and rock, psychedelic rock. It was a gem, and it's really a collector's item the way Gail Shannon's album is. Now, while I was learning about the cover artworks and all, I realized that mid-60s psychedelic age, it did a lot of good to the LP covers, and it had a 12-inch by 12-inch panorama. Say, for instance, this one by the Chamber Brothers. It's a full-blown psychedelic LP, a psychedelic album. So I really realized that the area that they were getting, they were utilizing it to the fullest extent. And LPs I found, the LP covers, they were so different. Like I remember a Rolling Stones compilation LP called Through the Past Darkly, Part 2 I believe, that was the name. It had a hexagonal cover. I remember one LP by Grand Funk Railroad, Eat to Leave Us Funk, probably, that was the name. The cover was just circular, and the picture was that of American dollar. What denomination of dollar I don't remember exactly. So I was getting surprised day after day, week after week, month after month. And then I also found that the records I was buying then, no one hasn't heard their names. They were so obscure. Chamber Brothers is as good as lost now. And there is one surprising record I came by Vanilla Fudge. It's called The Beat Goes On. Do you know what the surprising element? In the cover, it has the name Beat Goes On written in 7 languages, and one of them was Bengali and the other was Hindi. The languages I know. Now, another element of surprise of this album is that it had no song. I repeat, it had no song. Now what it had got? It had one song, The Beat Goes On. It's a Sonny Bono composition, but the whole album is interspersed between 4 phases with an introductory sketch. The 4 phases consisted of phase 1 of different periods of music being recorded and performed in small fragments by the group. Phase 2 was Beethoven's Fur Elise and Moonlight Sonata being played in absolute weird fashion. Phase 3 was an interview. Oh no, I'm sorry. Phase 3 is basically Voices in Time. It featured voices of Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy and other voices. And phase 4 was interview taken one at a time by all the 4 members, one of the other. It's so amazing. I just can't believe that a record, a musical record, can be like this. Aphrodite's Child, you might see here. It has a cover which is a picture of the three members. One happens to be Demis Rousseau, who went solo a few years later in the mid-70s and was hugely popular. The back cover happens to be the negative of that same front cover. As I was going into 70s rock, things were getting harder. This group, Mott the Hoople, whose leader was Iron Hunter, this album Mad Shadows, it may not be their most popular album, but see what a brilliant cover it has got. It's totally black and white, and it is a wolf, I guess. It is a wolf. So if I open it, you would find such nice pictures. So rock was defining its own form in so many ways. Not the music. It was with, but the cover, the inner artwork, the back cover, so on and so forth. We all talk about Pink Floyd and their classic Dark Side of the Moon, which was released in 1973. 1972, a band called Medicine Head released an album. It was also called Dark Side of the Moon. The cover is like this, psychedelic, and Floyd's Dark Side was again full of psychedelia. Now the story goes is that when Pink Floyd decided to use their name, this name, they found that this name has already been used by another group, which was Medicine Head. So they waited for a while and the release was delayed. What I mean to say, Dark Side of the Moon was recorded for a period of 6 months in the year 1972. But it was released 1 year later. They waited to see the fate of the Medicine Head's album. And when they found that this album was not a right-away hit, so they decided to keep the same title, and it's so unique. By the way, this album really contains good music, and good music, it may not be a hit album. The good album may not be a hit album all the time, and the converse is also true. But coming from the harder side of rock, like Medicine Head was a slightly blues rock. Coming from the harder side and electric side, when I started cultivating the softer side of the rock, folk rock, I came across this gem of an album. It is a masterpiece. It's called Brave New World by the Straws. I just fell in love with this album. I remember the day I bought it, I listened to it for 4 or 5 times successively. The album was so damn good. The album back cover has something written. It is a hymn. But, oh by the way, the front cover is by William Blake. It's called Glad Day. Now, we have all heard about Meatloaf and his Bat Out of Hell series of albums. Very few people know about the man who was behind Meatloaf, the composer of the songs. The gentleman, he himself came up with an LP. The gentleman is James Steinman. He probably released the only LP. It's called Bad for Good. Bad for Good was theatrical rock in full-blown fashion with a brilliant cover to boot. And to round it off, I want to show some strange covers. There would be some known groups, known bands, and a couple of unknown ones too. In the soft rock stature, this group, Golden Avatar, and another one with a name close to our home India called Ananta, again had a very good cover. Both these groups, both these albums had a thing common in between. They thanked Stevie Wonder, Neil Diamond, George Harrison for their project. They didn't play anything, but probably they inspired them to write their songs and for making of these two LPs. And there were some pretty weird ones of groups you know. One is Journey, the hard rock band from late 70s. This is a live LP, like double LP. I was never really too fond of this band. I mean, they were a little popish for me. But I was too amazed with this cover. If you have a closer look, this tongue gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It goes inside, and no matter how much I used to dislike this band, in a live setup they really sounded very, very good. Again, Kiss, I used to laugh at them with their makeups and all. I decided not to buy their albums. I hated their makeups. I came across this compilation album. It's almost glass-like. I don't know how many times I have listened to this double LP compilation, which is good, it's short and compact. But I can never stop seeing this brilliant cover, double platinum. And talking about heavy metal, well, no one can come close to Iron Maiden. This was my first acquisition of Iron Maiden album, Number of the Beasts, 666, the number. And I really can't say that whether I thoroughly understood the cover, but I understood and appreciated their music immensely. Coming back to the question that I really hear these days, where is the future? I really find that LPs are being pressed all over the world and being sold at a premium. Now, while I still own 10,000 CDs, 10,000 plus CDs, which is more than twice of my 5,000 LPs, what I find during mastering, they are all trying to come closer to the sound of an LP, which is the analog sound. So no matter it is digitally recorded, digitally mixed and digitally mastered, the sound they want to be is like the way the LPs used to be heard through our magnetic or non-magnetic turntables with a medium range amplifier and speaker system. So all I can say, records are always a winner and nothing really happens to them. I mean, they are your lifelong companion. They're surely my lifelong companion. They have been giving me company for the last 32 years or so of my personal collection. I don't talk about my earlier father's or my grandfather's records. And there is really a future. I mean, it has turned full circle. So records are being pressed, records are being sold at a premium, turntables are being manufactured once again, and let's all hope we will get the platter back and a 12-inch by 12-inch cover with lot many artwork to fit in. Let's all hope. Thank you.